As you might know, a lot of people cannot be alone or struggle with being alone. And because of that, they don't like being alone. I understand if you struggle with something, you most likely won't like it, right? Until you learn and become better at it. With most things. And that's good news. Because you can become better at being alone. And to add something extra on top of that, there are very good benefits to being alone as well. Alright, that's it. I'll see you guys. I'm done. I'm kidding, of course. So, what are these benefits? I want to say, sometimes it is better to be alone, right? Sometimes you're better off alone than being with other people. Now, an example of this is, for example, you are with people, right, that only smoke, that only drink, that only party on the weekend, that only do criminal things, let's say, right, misbehavior or whatever. They only steal, all those kind of things, right? That basically they bring the worst out of you and are the opposite of beneficial to you, right? They're not beneficial to you at all in any way. Like you're maybe you're having a little bit of fun, but when you're done and then all of a sudden you feel like, I don't know if I should have done that. It's not really that much fun anymore. You know, those people are the people that you want to hang out with, right? You need to look for the longer picture, right? Because now it could feel good, as I've just said, right? It could still be fun. But when you're back home and you're not with them, you're like, that wasn't smart. So sometimes it's better to be alone than to be with people that don't help you in any way, shape, or form. And maybe even are doing the opposite, right? They bring you down, they make you worse. Because you should be focusing on the things that help you, of course, right? You should be focusing on things that are beneficial to you, right? Training, learning, building things, right? And on building this, I mean business, projects, building anything you like, right? That could be helping you be creative, for example, instead of doing all those other things that in itself, drinking, okay, it's not good, but it's alright if you do it. Smoking, it's your choice, right? But stealing and whatever, that's obviously it's not smart. But you should be looking if that's beneficial to you at all. Because in the end, you would want to grow instead of either stay the same or even, let's say, downgrade. Sometimes you are better off alone than being with other people, right? So that is the first thing. It's not per se a benefit, but in a way it is, because you're cutting out bad stuff, right? And so that's a benefit of being alone. Sometimes the people that you are hanging around with aren't the right people for you, and that sounds hard because it is. Sometimes you have to cut off people that don't have the same sort of vision as you, right? That aren't wanting to grow the way you want to grow. You know, maybe, let's say, maybe they are grass and you are a pine tree, right? You have a way higher limit than them. That sounds mean, but some people don't want to be a pine tree, and some people don't want to do hard things or don't want to grow to those extending or extents of a pine tree, for example. So that is one thing, right? It's sometimes you're better off alone, and that's a hard thing, but you have to accept it, I guess. Again, it's pretty hard, but it's true. With that, being social is definitely a good thing, right? You will live a normal life if you interact with people, you know, if you're being social. And if you're totally not being social and you're only in your room and you're not talking to anyone, you're not doing anything, that definitely can still be helpful, but not for extended longer periods of time, let's say years on end, right? And that doesn't mean that, you know, being super social doesn't mean go clubbing every weekend, go talk to every single person, right? But you do have to connect with people. You want connections. You probably want a girlfriend. You probably want friends. You know, and again, that doesn't mean you have to have 20,000 friends. 1 friend, 2 friends, 3 friends, 20 friends. maybe half friends that you don't really talk to that much, but sometimes you just call and hang, sometimes you hang out and you ask how the day was going, how the week went, did you do anything special, all those types of things, right? And being social, that is basically the only way to find those people, because being totally isolated from society, basically you're not gonna meet people, maybe online, but that's not really, it is definitely a connection, don't get me wrong, but it's not a personal connection where you can actually physically touch each other, right? That sounded a little weird. Touch each other physically. You know what I mean, right? I mean, giving each other high fives and hugs, that's needed sometimes. Everybody needs a hug sometimes. If you want a hug, I can give you a hug if you want. You want? All right, sure. Come here. Oh, sorry. My beard got in your face. I'm sorry, man. I need to shave. I know. So yeah, being social definitely is good. But again, it doesn't mean you have to go clubbing every weekend, drink every weekend, do all these things that basically don't go in line with your line, right, in your life. So, what I said, sometimes better off alone, but it doesn't mean that you don't socialize. Something that helped me a lot with being alone, because I have been alone quite a lot, maybe a little too much, but because of that I did learn this as well, is finding your inner self, right? Finding your true self, as somebody could say. What this means for me is finding out what you really like, what you really want to do with your life, who you really are as a person. Because I've said this in other videos as well, most people have a mask on their face, especially when you first meet them, and they are not truly being themselves. But when you're alone, you can be yourself and it doesn't really matter, right? So finding your true self is really only gonna happen when you are alone, because then you can actually ask yourself questions and be 100% honest without being judged, which is very important. And these questions, there are multiple questions you can ask, of course, and a few examples could be, right, what do I really like to do? What do I really don't like to do? And then only these two questions already can help you in many things, right? Because that can help you with sports, or what sports do I really like to do? What sport do I really not like to do? Do I really like to travel? Or what kind of travel do I really like, and what kind of travel do I really not like, right? So those two questions you can apply to multiple aspects of your life, right? So those are not just two questions, but those are two questions you can use for hundreds, if not thousands of topics, right? What kind of food do I really like? What kind of food do I really not like? What kind of people do I like? What kind of people do I really not like? You understand, right? Now, another question what I like to ask, which is a more deeper question, is what do I really want in my life? What is something I really want in my life? What do I want to have done in my life before I die? Because everybody's gonna die eventually. That is 100% guaranteed. So asking yourself these questions, you can figure out sort of like goals as well, which is important in my eyes. Now, these are just some examples, right? There are multiple questions you can ask yourself, but those are just some questions that I came up with. Now, what I do advise you to do is to write them down, which will help you understand them better, it is just better in general. There's a study done by someone, I don't know who it is, but I've always remembered this, and now I write down things a lot. Like I have this paper here, it's almost empty, and this is like my third or fourth one. I write things down in a lot of books, they're full, and so I write things down, and you should too. Something else that happens when you're being alone is but as I said, you can be yourself, right? When you're alone, you don't have to hide yourself to anyone. As I've said with the mask, you're not judging yourself the way other people, or the way you think other people judge yourself, right? You do judge yourself, but not in the way of being yourself. When you're truly yourself, you don't judge yourself to being, how can I say this? You don't judge yourself for being you. right? And other people judge people on how they are, right? I see somebody act a different way, I will most likely judge them by that act. And I think that is the way that person is. But when he's alone, he might not be that way, right? So when you're alone, you can truly be yourself without judgment, without care for anybody else, because you're alone. Something that is not per se just for you, but also for the people around you, is when you're alone, you will appreciate your relationships more, right? Because before, if you were with people, you know them, you do fun things with them, you don't do fun things with them, you get into arguments and all these things that come with relationships, basically. Now when you're alone, those things don't happen, so now you don't talk to that person, now you don't have those fun moments, those bad moments, let's say, right? Bad and fun moments. Now you appreciate it more. Now you're like, that one time I actually went to dinner with my friend, actually was quite a lot of fun and I really enjoyed it. Well, at that moment you weren't really thinking that deeply about it, or you didn't appreciate it enough, and now you look back at it and you're like, wow, that's actually, it was fun, and I really like this person and I really want this person in my life, right? That is the first thing, right? Seeing what people do, and being alone is better than being with people that bring you down. So that is, for example, a person that now you appreciate more. You're like, yeah, I want that person more in my life, right? So you appreciate your relationships more, and with that also comes, you see what relationships are better for you and not, and which are not better for you or worse for you, whatever you want to say, right? So yeah, you will appreciate your relationships more when you're being alone, because now you don't have those relationships close to you. Another thing that will happen when you basically, let's say, practice being alone, because obviously you're not gonna have fun being alone in the beginning, you're gonna have to learn and become better at being alone, which will only happen by being alone. As with many things, you will not become a better football player if you never do football or basketball, right? If you never do basketball, you will not become a better basketball player. You have to put in a practice, you have to do it actually in order to become better. So when you do it, you become more comfortable being alone, and so you don't really crave being with people all of the time. And what that does is you don't need anybody, and that is a big thing, because when you are needy to be with someone, for example, you feel someone that needs a relationship, he or she really wants to be with this person, that will feel a little strange, right? Unless you like that person as well, and whatnot. But that is relationship advice or whatever. Let's not get into that. I'm not a professional. And yeah, you become more comfortable being alone, and because you don't need anybody else to be with, you can do all these things alone. You want to travel to a country, but you're scared because you're alone. Now you are so comfortable alone, you're like, man, I don't care, I can have fun by myself, right? Because when you're being comfortable alone and you can be alone, you do things alone, you have to do things alone, and that only comes when you practice being alone. Understandable, right? Now being alone won't be a problem. As for the people who do have a problem with being alone or struggle with being alone, just do those things, right? Ask yourself questions. So that came out hard. Ask yourself questions to, what do I like, right? As I've said. Now, when you practice being alone, you can start even trying to do things alone, which seems stupid, weird, whatever you want to call it. Maybe you start by walking to the store alone, and just say hi to people on the way. Don't even have to start a conversation, just say hi. Or you just sit in your room and then do some work or whatever alone. Right now, your room is a pretty safe environment, so you probably don't mind doing that. You can also go to the movies alone. If you enjoy yourself, who cares, right? I'm pretty sure you've seen somebody once in your life go to the movies all alone, and you're like, oh, that is sad. But he probably didn't think that it was sad. He was just enjoying the movie. Why? Because he's comfortable being alone, right? So you have to practice those things, and then you'll be way more comfortable being alone. Now it's not that hard anymore, and you don't struggle with being alone anymore. Put in the practice and you'll become better. You'll get confidence in it. But then again, right? Being alone forever is not how humans are, right? Humans need contact. You don't need contact. It's not like you need it or you die, right? But without contact, humans won't act as humans. You've seen those things, right, where humans or a child grew up in a wolf pack and he basically wasn't a human, right? So humans need contact, and some need it more than others. But even though you need contact, I still think it's good to be alone sometimes. I think the biggest thing I have found to be useful for being alone is finding out who I truly am. You know, for you, finding out who you truly are and what you truly want to do with your lives. You know, what are your values? By asking those questions and writing them down and thinking and being alone, you can find those out, which for me was a very big beneficial thing, because I knew what I wanted. I knew what I wanted to do in my life and what I wanted to achieve before I die and what I wanted to do before I die. You know, if I never was alone, I probably wouldn't have found that out. And so I think that is one of the best things for me to being alone. When you find out everything, and then you can talk with anybody and everybody, and it doesn't really matter, and you know what is good for you because you know who you are as a person, you know what you want to do as a person. Right? So that is the biggest thing for being alone, what you can learn and become as a person, because you become a different person. You become your true self. As I've said, most people wear a mask, right? So I'm curious. Let me know. What do you like and dislike about being alone? I'm curious. Let me know in the comments down below. By that, that's the end of the video. I hope this helps you out, and I'll see you guys in the next one.